Hey everyone, and welcome back to Battleborn. I've got an update for Boldur's Axe-assin build for you, and like many characters, Boldur has changed quite dramatically since the original build. So with those changes, we're now going to be more focused on burst damage. Now, unlike other characters, his original build that I made is still quite viable. So if you don't like the changes that I've made, you can always revert back to the original build, and it should still do really well for you, but not quite as effective as it used to be. So on this video, we're going to talk about Boldur's abilities, his Helix choices, and the gear I like to bring for the build. So let's start out with his passive Rage. Killing enemies causes Boldur to melee 20% faster and take 25% less damage for 8 seconds. So you want to have that activated as much as possible. So kill minions, players, buildables, shard clusters, anything you can get your hands on. You want that activated because it's going to let you kill things easier and keep you alive. Also, it's important to note that Boldur Dash has changed, so when you use it, it's also going to activate Rage. You used to have to choose a Helix option for that, but now it's there by default. And at level 5, we're going to augment Rage so you get 15% more damage reduction. So that gets you up to 40%, which is just huge. Awesome amount of damage reduction. Next up, we've got the weapon, Runic Axe. Boldur deals slow, powerful melee strikes with his Runic Axe. When unarmed, Boldur falls back on hand-to-hand combat with 30% enhanced movement. So he's got his axe by default. If you use Axe Toss and you don't retrieve your axe, you'll then be punching, but you'll move 30% faster. Now the punching does a little bit more, little less damage, but I'm not sure if that's because it actually does less damage or simply that it attacks slower. But it does a little less damage, but you get to move faster. So they both have their benefits. And at level 7, we're going to increase all of Boldur's melee damage by 18%. So whether you're using the axe or the fists, it's going to be 18% stronger. All right, next up, we've got the Ikuni Great Shield. Boldur is an elite defender, utilizing his Ikuni Great Shield to block up to 2,000 incoming damage and rapid health regeneration to stay in the fight. So he's got Eldred regeneration like all the other Eldred, so he gets 7 health regeneration per second. And he's got his shield to block damage because he doesn't have, I guess you'd call it a regular shield. He has a physical shield. And at level 3, we're going to double the amount that the shield can block. Although I'm not sure if that value is correct. I think it's 1,000 by default. And once we double it, it'll be 2,000. Because I don't think it's 4,000 once we double it. That seems a little overkill. And also the same augment is going to allow us to sprint with the shield. So we can gap close on people without taking any damage. And it's absolutely wonderful. Alright, next up we've got Boldur Dash, which is on a 15-second cooldown. Dashes forward, dealing 133 damage, knocking back enemies and activating Rage. And if you've got your ultimate activated on your shield, which is the Rune Power, it deals 25% extra damage as well as 144 damage over 4 seconds. Now, if you don't understand how the ultimate works, we'll go over that in a little bit. At level 1, we're going to augment Boldur Dash to give us a 225 point overshield when we use it. At level 2, we're going to increase the dash distance. And at level 8, we're going to make the ultimate effects 20% stronger. So the things under the Rune Power, the 25% extra damage and the damage over time, are going to be 20% stronger. Alright, next up we've got Axe Toss, which is also on a 15-second cooldown. Boldur throws his axe, dealing 200 damage. Retrieving the axe reduces its cooldown by 20%. And then if you have your ultimate activated on your axe, which is Rune Power, axe explodes on impact, dealing up to 300 damage. At level 4, we're going to add a 240 damage over time to the Axe Toss, 240 damage over 4 seconds. At level 6, we're going to increase Axe Toss's damage by 15%. And at level 9, we're going to make it so every enemy we kill with Axe Toss increases our maximum HP by 144. And that goes up to 5 stacks. So at 5 stacks, it would give you 720 extra health. And finally, we've got the ultimate, Runes of Power. And it's on a 50-second cooldown. Now, that used to be 30 seconds, so they increased it quite dramatically. increases melee damage by 18%, and converts 25% of damage blocked into health. Using Axe Toss or Boulder Dash will consume the corresponding rune. So the ultimate is a little confusing to newer players to Boulder. The way it works is you use the ultimate and it puts a rune on your shield and your axe. The axe rune is the one that increases your melee damage. The shield one is the one that gives you health from blocking. Now, if you use Boulder Dash, it consumes the shield one and increases Boulder Dash's effect. And if you use Axe Toss, it'll consume the axe one. So you lose, once you consume the rune, you obviously lose the effects of that rune. Now, one thing that's really awesome about his ultimate is that when you use it and you activate those runes, it immediately goes on cooldown, although you're getting the effects of the runes the entire time. So what you can do is use the ultimate, put the runes on, and then wait the 50 seconds, use the runes for your abilities, and then immediately use the ultimate again and you get them back. So that's how I used to do it on my old build. Sometimes I do it on the new build, but not as much anymore. But just, it's good to be aware of that. The ultimate is very versatile. Alright, so those are his abilities. Let's go to the Helix. I'll explain to you the options that I take, and we'll just talk about all of the options in general. So for level 1, we go to the right with Crash Helmet. That gives you the overshield when you use Boulder Dash. The other option is if Axe Toss hits enemies or objects in the world, it immediately returns to your hand. But I don't really find that all that useful, because usually if I'm hitting something with Axe Toss, I'm running into melee with it anyway, so I'm just going to pick the axe back up. So I don't find that useful for any situation. Alright, for level 2, we go to the left with Long Distance Dash. That increases Boulder Dash's dash distance, which is great for gap closing or escaping. And I don't think I mentioned it earlier, the pushback on Boulder Dash, if the person hits a wall, it's going to stun them. So having extra distance on that just lets you use it from further away and hit them and get the stun in from a longer distance. So you might not seem like a threat, but you dash in, you hit them against a wall, and you start wailing on them. Super effective. The other options, Pinballer. After striking a target with Boulder Dash, Boulder bounces backwards. I honestly don't know why you'd use that, so I can't really comment on it. I found no use for it. And then the other one is Gather No Moss. Boulder continues to dash forward after hitting an enemy with Boulder Dash, allowing him to hit multiple enemies, and then they're knocked into the air instead of knocked back. I also don't find that effective. I suppose in some group scenarios that could be good, but I'd much rather have the ability to stun people rather than knock them into the air, even if it's multiple people. And, oh, that reminds me. One last thing about Boulder Dash. Because they removed player collision, you can no longer stun one person into another. So just be aware of that. That's no longer an option. Alright, level 3, we go to the right with Deft Defender. That doubles the blocking capacity of your shield to get it up to 2,000, I believe. It could be 4,000, but that seems overkill. And it also allows you to sprint with your shield, which is the main reason I take this. The increased capacity is nice, but the sprinting is where it's at. So that's the main reason for taking that. You could also go to the left, so your unarmed attacks slow enemies. That is actually quite useful, but unfortunately it's on the same level as sprinting with your shield. So the shield is going to win every time for me. But it is a good Helix option if you like to slow on your fist attacks. Level 4, we go to the left with Hatchet Man. That gives your Axe Toss a 240 point damage over time, over 4 seconds, which increases your burst damage. Now, Head Splitter is a fantastic option. It adds a slow to the Axe Toss, and it's what I used to use on the old build. But like I said, I'm going for burst damage, so I want that damage over time. But if you like the slow instead, it's a fantastic option as well. Both of those are great. Alright, level 5, we go up the middle with Desperate Rage. That increases your damage reduction on Rage by 15%, which is so good. It's so good. Berserker Rage on the right, I don't find to be worth it. That's just going to increase your rage duration by 2 seconds. Not really that big of a deal. And on the left, when rage is activated, your movement speed is increased by 30%. That one's more interesting. If you wanted to make a build where Boulder's like ridiculously fast, that's the option you would go with. Alright, level 6, we go to the left, increase Axe Toss's damage by 15%. Not a huge boost, but I'll take whatever I can get. So I like that option for this build. If you want to go up the middle, you'll be more of a support Boulder. So you'll hit an enemy with Axe Toss and cause it to take more damage, which you would assume would be for your allies. It'll also increase your damage, but I think you'd be better off with increasing Axe Toss. And you can also go to the right and get Boulder Crash. Increase Boulder Dash's damage by 15%. But the Axe Toss does more damage, so I want to increase its damage instead of Boulder Dash. Alright, level 7, we go to the left, increase all our melee attacks by 18%. Pretty self-explanatory why you'd want that. You could also go to the right and increase Boulder's health regeneration rate when he hits enemies with melee attacks. But honestly, I find that health regen to be way too weak to consider that a viable option. So I don't really think that's a good option at all. I would go with the increased damage. Level 8, we go to the left to make the ultimate effect on our Boulder Dash stronger. That's just more for a burst damage. So that's why I like to take it. You could go to the right and decrease Boulder Dash's cooldown time, but I use Boulder Dash and Axe Toss in conjunction. So having them on different cooldowns doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But having Boulder Dash more often is really nice. You get Rage more often, and you get your Overshield more often. So it's definitely not a bad choice. And there's also Knockout Punch if you wanted to make more of an unarmed melee build. That's going to increase your melee damage by 18%. Melee builds are certainly an option with him, and you can get the slow on the melee strikes, and you'll move super fast, but I just don't like the melee builds myself, and it doesn't really work for this particular setup. So not a bad option in general, but for this build it doesn't make much sense. Alright, level 9, we get it so when we kill enemies with Axe Toss, we get 144 more to our maximum health, up to 5 stacks, for a total of 720. That's a really, really strong Helix. Extra 720 health on Boulder is amazing. You could go to the right with Trusty Toss. Retrieving Boulder's Runic Axe reduces Axe Toss's cooldown. I don't understand that Helix. There's something I'm missing here. I honestly haven't tested it much, because why would I go with anything but the left option? But it is confusing to me, because if you use the Runic Axe, it explodes, which means you can't retrieve it. So I'm really confused by that Helix. I think it's a bug. But if it's not, the left option is far superior in all situations, in my opinion. And then finally, level 10, we go to the left with Axe Mastery. That increases our damage by 2% for every 250 health we currently have. That's not max health, that's our current health. And that's just going to make your melee attacks, or damage in general, much stronger. If you go up the middle, you can give yourself a really strong heal whenever you get rid of your runes. When you have runes active. So when you use your ultimate, when you have runes already going. So say, for instance, you're almost dead, but you have both of your runes active and ultimates off of cooldown. You activate your ultimate, and that'll get you back to 100% health. If you had one rune active, it would get you back to 50% health. So it's just a way to burst heal yourself. But I'd much rather have the damage. And then on the right, you get Shield Mastery. While the Rune of Power is active on Boulder's Great Shield, he converts more damage blocked into health. So it increases the healing by 50%, which I believe gets it up to 37.25 or something like that. Is that right? I think. Something like that. No, 30, yeah, somewhere around there. My math is not quite there yet, but it's about 37%. So I don't particularly find that worth it either. I'd much rather have the damage on the left. All right, so those are the Helix choices I make. Finally, we go to the gear. And as usual, I've got 3 sets for Boldur. 1 for Incursion and Meltdown, 1 for Face Off, and 1 for Capture. So this expensive set is for Incursion and Meltdown. We've got the Survivor's Regrowth Serum, 14 health regeneration per second, and an extra 7 if we survive for 3 minutes. And as Boldur, we should definitely be surviving. Next, I've got the Bola's Target Finder, which might be a confusing option for some of you. Increases skill damage by 9.1%, attack damage by 5.04%, and damaging enemies with skills increases damage dealt to them by 5.6% for 10 seconds. So the reason that's valuable is you usually use your Boldur Dash followed by an Axe Toss followed by melee hits. So hitting that initial Boldur Dash will activate that special ability of Bola's Target Finder, and Axe Toss is the harder hitting ability followed by your very strong melee attacks. So debuffing people to take more damage after that really helps out a lot. Plus it has skill damage, which affects both Boldur Dash and your Axe Toss. And it has attack speed, which is also really good. So it's a really nice item for this build. And finally, we've got Symbiotic Gauntlet. 8.84% attack damage, increases your maximum health by 204, and you get an extra up to 8.84% attack damage based on your current percentage of maximum health. So if you're at full health, you'll get the full benefit. And attack damage is always good with Boldur. Alright, next up we've got our face-off gear. Survivor's Regrowth Serum again. We've got a freebie, Antiquated Golemic Sigil. Increases skill damage at the cost of maximum shield strength, which we don't have a shield, so no loss there. And Symbiotic Gauntlet again. And finally for Capture, I take an Artificial Vitae, 14 health regeneration per second. Antiquated Golemic Sigil again, and an Antiquated Ikuni Wrist Guard, which gives us attack damage at the cost of shield again, but no effect on the shield, so freebie items there. And just 420 crystals for that whole set. Alright, so there you go, the updated Axe-assin build for Boldur. So over the next couple of days, I'll release some matches with the build so you can see how the level progression works with the build, and I'll hopefully give you some useful tips and you can just see how I play in general. Hopefully that'll help you out. This build is a lot of fun to play, and he's got a lot more killing power than he used to have with the old build. So the old build, you would get high level and then you destroy everyone. Now you can kill throughout the entire match, which is really nice. But you still have that power creep, so you won't be really, really, really ridiculously strong until the higher levels, and then you're just insane. You'll just run around killing everyone. Alright, so there you go. I hope you guys enjoy this build and it works out for you. And let me know how it works out in the comments below. And just be watching out for those build matches to come. So that's going to do it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.